State of a Nation addresses to tell me certain things. Well, within the limitations of time, I wasn't sure I was going to get all of that. Perhaps I will need another review to look at and track, a number of initiatives and questions that I had hoped to hear. I'm also listening to all of the discussion, and I'm saying to myself that, in some of the earlier discussions, you had asked me, or in the notes that we shared, about my thinking or what I'm coming out of this experience of.
Right.
And I was thinking that there were a number of missed opportunities for me, in the past 8 years or so. So some of things I would have liked to see happen. But it also provides us with sterling lessons going forward. I think President Mahama, incoming president, has a unique opportunity to leave a legacy, because I think he has nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose to go out and make a definitive difference on a number of fronts. There are major lessons for managing expectations. Because he is also coming on the back of enormous expectations, and he is also coming on the back of a lot of goodwill.
He started talking about the debt in the energy sector and how the situation is dire, and so we need to pray and hope that things will get well.
He should also be aware of the prayer people as well. And I hope my moderator is not listening to this comment that I'm saying. But again, issues around coordination, and also managing the communication by his ministers and also by people in public office. In other countries, ministers don't talk like that. They don't talk by heart like that. You see, there has been too much talking, and we pray that there won't be so much talking. Now to the substantive issues that I picked from the State of the Nation address. I was listening carefully about the issues around chieftaincy resolution and some of the issues that were emerging. And I was asking myself, why is chieftaincy beginning to pose a problem, apart from the older ones that have to be carefully unpacked and looked at and, resolved sustainably? The president alluded to the fact that we needed to strengthen certain institutions like the Ministry of Chieftaincy and the Peace Council to help to address some of these concerns. We also need to look at the chieftaincy institution itself and its place in our whole governance architecture. I think that we need to pursue that discussion further. I don't think the chieftaincy ministry has been accorded the respect and the place and the clout and the gravitas that is required for it to do this kind of thing. But that is a discussion.
There's another school that wonders whether it is useful anyway.
Whether it's useful anyway, we want to ask. So long as we intend to have such an institution, then we have to make it work. Because while running through all of my thinking around this whole State of the Nation addresses, all of these achievements have been touted, but are they worth the value of the resources that were expended on it? If we take the resources, the quantum of resources that have been expended and the results that we see, have we had value for money? We have to do some real...
What's your answer to that?
Anyways, in a number of places, I feel that opportunities have been missed. And I will talk to a few of that later. In that regard, so we have to rethink the whole public administration architecture. And when he was talking about the addressing corruption and the achievements, he talked about the OSP, the Fiscal Response Anti-Money Laundering Bill, and so on and so forth. What I was thinking was, and of course, he talked about the budgetary support for the accountability institutions. I was thinking that this whole public administration thing has to be properly, we have to think it through. We've been doing all of these things about public sector reform, But we need to look at the whole thing in its entirety. Professor Kweku Azar made some proposals about strengthening accountability of ministers and, pulling all of this together. And indeed, His Excellency the President has indicated it as a top item in his resetting, 120-day social contract. We have to think through all of this very, very carefully and decide what needs to be done and how. The Ministry of Chieftaincy, is it a priority for us to have a whole entity managing relations with the chiefs? What is the place of the National House of Chiefs in all of this? We need to encourage all of these entities to look at how they can work more efficiently, more effectively, and more in support of a government that we have put in place. A lot of these parties or a lot of these bodies, these institutions, have operated on a very self-interested trajectory. They've looked at what it is they can they can do, where their interests prevail, and then they haven't fed into the larger public good. But I want to talk about the Galamsey issue he's talked about. He talked about the forest plantation strategy and so on, the Green Ghana project. There, I had wanted a bit more discussion about the larger context of climate change management, our environmental management issues, and the initiatives that are there. How have we performed? How are we responding to issues of deforestation, the implications for where the world economy is going and where Ghana fits into all of this? I would have loved to learn a little more about that. The issues around the free SHS and free TVET, I listened with rapt attention. I listened to the fact that there was the indication that new educational standards had been set as to what education institutions should look like. But one thing that has bothered me about all of this is looking at the thing in its entirety. Looking at it in its entirety, all these lovely children have gone through free SHS, with or without parental support, with subsidies and so on. But where are they going? It's what I'm saying. The chain, look at the whole chain, going into tertiary education and then giving them prospects of jobs, giving them prospects of being able to go on in life. They've gotten this free education. I'm not even talking about quality or their capacity to participate in the job market. Or then what? Then what? Then what? Is what I'm saying. So that we have not been able to get the then what. Look at the entire chain in its entirety. Because that also led me to listening to the issues around building entrepreneurial capacity and the entrepreneurship ecosystem and so on. There are too many little initiatives. Too many little initiatives, where some of them working in parallel, some of them working at cross purposes and not hanging together. And see, so one very important thing I would want to hear about is how we are going to address the issues of youth development. It is not hanging together. It is not hanging together. There are too many bits and pieces of initiatives, and it's also not decentralized in the system, in the sense that what local level initiatives, I mean, we've got NY youth departments and so on at the assembly level, parts of common fund go to support the youth authority and those institutions. But how are local initiatives for young people taking advantage of their capacities, their energies, and so on, being pulled together? How are they going to be pulled together? Especially if you look at the demographics. I mean, in the sense that about 40% of people, and again, the young people are within that bracket of our population, is within that bracket. And those of us who would be sympathetic to some of the issues he raised are fading out. Akosua Dumako and myself, we are fading out. These are the people you need to keep happy. These are the people you need to make, and they are knowledgeable, they have access to information, they have social media, and so on, and they have an opinion. They have an opinion. I have 3 of them in my house. They have major opinions as to they have an opinion on everything. And so we have to get you see, I wanted to hear how we're going to pull all of these initiatives together to be able to give our young people a structured delivery beyond even the implementation of the National Youth Policy, how we're going to give them a structured sense of hope. Not out of the mouth of the next child, I'm going to Japan. The next young person, I'm out. I'm looking for a way to leave this country. How are we going to give them that sense? So I wanted a bit more indication.
That's largely driven by the economic situation.
Indeed. And even if we could offer them a prospect of hope, the hang in here a little, this and that these are the options that you have. I wanted to hear a little about that. Again, in my own sector, the place of interest two places of interest I was having. I needed to hear something about decentralization and local governance.
He spoke about the regions that were created
and that one, but I didn't hear why the efforts to vote DCEs in sort of truncated.
Yeah, he said it was truncated.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, because his view was that it should be done on political lines, partisan lines.
Yes.
And the other opinion was that it shouldn't be on political lines.
But the discussion should have continued. You see, after the 2020 elections.
So he shouldn't have stopped it.
No, the discussion should have continued.
Okay.
To see what Ghanaians would want. You see what I'm saying? Because after the 2020 elections, civil society tried to pick it up and, have a discussion. What do Ghanaians want?
Right.
I wished that discussion had continued to a certain end. But the total silence was not a good thing.
CDD did a number of surveys.
Yes, they did.
And the popular view was that people wanted non-partisan.
That's right. That's
the position the president doesn't agree with.
Yes, but you see, you can't agree with everything. You see what I'm saying? There are situations where you make compromises and say, okay, if this is what you want, these are the spaces, the room for maneuver that we can take account of or take.
So he failed in that area.
So I'm not in the whole area of decentralization. I wanted more. For instance, there was a major, far-reaching plan, SADA master plan. It was, to me, a very solid document.
Okay.
So we sort of transited into the development authorities. We didn't hear of them again. And for me, that was a major pity, if you like. It was a pity.
Okay.
Another pity for me was the One District, One Factory initiative. I had this amazing dream where the districts would help to identify their potentials, and then the central government would play a facilitating role to help them to get in touch with those who would help them to prepare technical proposals and, do their best, help them to market their potentials and have it invested, and then every district would have a factory. It didn't happen that way. So for me, that was also a major...
The way it was sold, it was almost unthinkable for anybody to be against it.
Yeah.
One district, one factory, one village, one dam.
Yes.
You would think that in 8 years, the industrialization of this country's economy was going to take flight.
Yes. Because...
So that's also another failure for you.
Local economic development. So that for me would have been a fulcrum around which, so that even if central government helps you to initiate one major factory or something, the smaller complementary initiatives, people would pick it up and run with it, that kind of thing. So for me, that was also another missed opportunity.
Okay.
And then I wanted to hear a little more about those kinds of things. Definitely, I had a position on the Constitution. He said there's no perfect Constitution, but you know, he spoke some Latin there, which came to the fact that hastens slowly. But 2011, Professor Ofei-Aboagye's people put the document there, you know, and so between 2011 and now is about 13 years.
So the new group actually,
yes,
by the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs,
that's right,
that's right, have also looked at some of the things that Professor Ofei-Aboagye's committee proposed.
That's right.
And some of which, because of time,
yes,
there's a need to retweak.
Yes.
And they have presented another report.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So that, for me, is something that I would very much like to see going forward on this issue. And you talked about the One Village, One Dam. There were a number of initiatives that were ongoing, small things, but they went upscale. They became islands of excellence, you know, and then time came and then they dissipated. So, well, he can't, you don't expect him to say that he has not done well.
All right.
You don't expect him to say that. But again, it will be necessary for us to take a good hard look at where we are as a nation and move forward.
All right, we'll take a break, return to the disputed constituencies, 4 of them that need to be taken care of. Also, there are the national honors that have attracted a lot of criticism, that they appear to have lost their value, and the brand has been damaged by the manner in which it has been done. People like Kofi Bento insist that the president should not be conferring national honors on his ministers, and on ministers who have had questionable, you know, conduct and so on. But before I do that, I'm going to ask, because I could see some of you itching to say one thing or the other, just a minute if you need to do a quick rebut or some response to any of the things that have been said. Clara says, wow, such courage, Professor Adomako. Prince Henry says that one of the legacies Ghanaians can remember Nana Akufo-Addo led government for is that what? He deceived God about building a cathedral for him. Can we move beyond that? Okay. Al-Hajj Suleiman says that new governments continue what their predecessors left. Don't continue what their predecessors left, because in most cases, such projects are saddled with huge debts, with no dedicated funds to complete them. In reality, if new government would focus on completing previous projects, they would be left with no fiscal space to start their own programs. This is an MPP, you know, guy sending this message. That's difficult to appreciate. The president is appealing to John Mahama to finish the Agenda 111 projects. He says, to resolve the problem, I suggest all projects above a certain threshold be set in law, an act of parliament, which shall spell out a dedicated source fund, completion timelines, etc. There must be punitive aspects to such a law. Well, you know the thing, proverbial thing, which is actually true to a large extent. People just want their 10% taken quickly, and the rest, they don't follow it. Now, you say that it's time for Joyce to shift gear from campaigning to delivering on the promises made by the NDC. The people who voted for change are watching closely, eager to see the fulfillment of the lofty promises like incorporating private schools into the free SHS program, increase cocoa farmer compensation from 3,000 to 6,000, reduce taxes, and even lower prices for staples like kenke. Okay, okay, thank you. That's too long a message. That's all I can read for now. Yes, so let me hear you quickly. Fatih wants to say something briefly. That's under a minute.
Yeah, Samson, just a few points I noted, and I thought I'm in the position to share information.
Very quickly.
So I wanted to use this to do that. In terms of President Akufo-Addo's record of completing legacy projects, just as the gentleman said, you can't do everything. But his record still stands tall as a president who completed most of the legacy projects that were left behind. The e-blocks, the NDC
was left for 8 years.
The NDC completed 29. As of 2022, President Akufo-Addo's government had completed additional 31 e-blocks. In fact, the majority leader then presented this information in Parliament, and it wasn't contested. So I believe if your team checks, they will find that. Okay. Also, I just wanted to share an information with Prof about school feeding. The school feeding program under the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection is for basic schools. The one that they were talking about, the 80 pesos in the past, and now moved to 1 cedi 50 pesos. So that is run by Ministry of Gender. The feeding component of free SHS is in 2 parts. The non-perishable parts is handled by the National Food and Buffer Stock Company, which is supervised by both the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Agric. And the perishable part is the disbursements that are sent to the headmasters to buy like tomatoes and other produce for the schools. There was also this issue about one district, one factory, finally. And I also wanted to share light on it. It is one of the projects of this government that regrettably, I think we didn't sell enough. Not that the factories were not constructed, not that the projects are not there, but the marketing around the program did not go as planned. You agree with me that...
You don't have to sell. If they exist and they are functioning
yes, they
well,
exist. In fact...
people will know and they will sell themselves.
There is a reason why I'm saying it was not sold. I have always referred to this tomato factory that produces Lavans at Suhum. I didn't know it was a one district, one factory initiative. I saw the products on the market, and even as a government appointee, I didn't know it was President Akufo-Addo's legacy. When I went to Central Region for the regional town hall meetings, from Kasua all the way to Cape Coast, 13 1D, 1F factories completed. Yeah. I'm not talking about started though.
No,
completed and operational.
Let me clarify this. My problem is the process. My problem is the process. I don't have data on how many was completed for what. But my problem was the process. I saw the 1D, 1F as an opportunity to invigorate local economies. You see, when you do local economic development, it is driven by local initiative to be able to harness local resources and get the multiplier effects into the local economy. This is what I'm saying. So something owned by the locality or based in the locality, employing people from the locality, putting money in the locality so that even attendant industry or economic activities can sprout from there.
Okay, thank you.